Welcome to the Complete Streets Commission's May 13th regular commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in accordance with public health guidelines. I would like to introduce Complete Streets Commission members and city staff present. I'm Chair Athena Irakomos. Commissioners present include Sally Cole, Jackie Seabraham, Meredith Bergen-Bailey, Matthew Raskoff, Scott Herscher, and Kevin Rennie. City staff present include Jonna Chan, Transportation Planner, and Katrine Maki, Senior Transportation Planner. Katrine, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Irakomos and members of the Complete Streets Commission. For members of the public who wish to provide public comment for any item on tonight's agenda, after the Chair calls for public comment on that item, if you are in person, we ask that you fill out a speaker card available at the back table and return that to the clerk's desk. If you are participating virtually, attendees on Zoom may engage the raise hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrine. The next item is reports and announcements. Under reports and announcements, city staff and commission members may communicate general information of interest regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No commission discussion or action can occur on any of the presented items. Katrine, are there any reports and announcements?
Two quick updates. The City Council conducted a study session last night on the 5-year CIP and the budget and how those two work together. And additionally, coming up on the council agenda in June will be the pilot projects of the back and angle parking and the Blake Street closure.
Any report out highlights for us around the CIP discussion?
I wasn't there, so I don't feel like I could. But you'll be able to. The video or the minutes won't be for another month, but you should be able to see the video in a couple days.
Okay, is that the final meeting about the CIP, or do they have to?
It was a study session, so there's going to be more meetings on the budget, but so they were just getting specific input on this aspect of it.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. This concludes my reports and announcements.
Thank you, Katrine. The next item is public comment. Under public comment, members of the public may address the Complete Streets Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under the public comment other than to provide general information. Katrine, please call for general public comment.
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature. Well, if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Having no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the Chair.
Thank you. Under regular business, the Commission considers recommendations from city staff and on policy matters or administrative actions that require Commission approval. The first regular business item tonight is item E1, accept the Complete Streets Commission minutes for April 8th, 2026. Are there any clarifying questions from the Commission before I take public comment? No? Katrine, could you please call for public comment?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Have no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the Chair.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. My intent isn't to correct the or propose any edits to the minutes, but upon reading them again and thinking about that meeting, I wondered if we could get more clarity in meetings where we're not making a motion about what we are providing. So for example, in the second page of the minutes where it says the commission provided the following feedback, and it's a list of like 8 things, you know? So when I read that again, I thought, well, some of this sounded like things that we discussed and sort of agreed on consensus, and some of it sounds like individual things that individual commissioners, recommended. So it just didn't feel as clear to me, that the process wasn't as clear, at least to me, around how do we group these things for the council or for planning commission or whoever's seeing it's next? Like, how do we be a little more precise about how we characterize, like maybe this category is, we all talked about this and we agreed, here's a collection of other things that people recommended, but the commission didn't, didn't discuss. I don't know. It just seems like it was all grouped and maybe there was opportunity to categorize.
I did read that list as an attempt to help with that. I read that list back.
Yes, I remember that.
And,
Yes.
but we can work on that more. And,
Yes.
and maybe next time when I read it back, we'll kind of trigger with people like, this is the consensus I'm hearing. We need to verify that this is the consensus.
Yeah.
So that might have been another word to add
Yeah.
there.
And no like a criticism of the way you did it, because you absolutely did read it back. It was more that I ended up feeling like maybe we should have a more clarity as a commission in the process of how we're positioning these things as recommendations to council or recommendations to planning or feedback generally or whatever it is. Anyway, I thought.
Yeah, it's not an official motion, but it doesn't mean you guys can't have your discussion and then
Yeah.
kind of conclude your discussion with a recap. To me, that makes it easier. I don't have to read it back. It could be the chair or whoever is
Sure.
future chair summarizing it back.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Thank you. No, nothing else.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second for the accepting the minutes? Commissioner Sebrian, and I'll second it. And vote. Who, please abstain if you were not present.
Oh, I'm, no, I'm not voting. Are we voting yes right now?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
okay.
voting for it. I don't remember who wasn't here.
I think Bailey in the minutes.
Yeah, Bailey wasn't in. Yeah,
I think
it was the
Yeah.
school meeting thing. It was the school, yeah. Vacation.
Okay, maybe we should do it out loud just
Okay.
to make sure.
Um,
Can we just say the ayes? Okay, Cole,
I-
Sebrian, Irakomos, and Hersher. Okay,
Kevin, were you there? No.
Okay.
Yeah, you were.
got it. Thank you.
Smaller group.
Okay. So, okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is item E2, receive an update on the 101 Corridor Connect program. Chief Officer with the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, Peter Skinner, will present.
This is your big moment.
Okay. Peter Skinner, I'm the Chief Officer of the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. I believe my staff has given you updates on 101 Corridor Connect in the past. So we are going to all the local commissions and city councils to give sort of another update on our Corridor Connect program after our board adopted the South County multimodal strategies, as well as a Active 101 and a mini grant program, which I'll talk about in a little bit. As a reminder, let me see. Well, the next slide, please. 101 Corridor Connect is a collaborative planning process in which we engaged all the communities along US 101, within a 1 mile buffer, to look at congestion management improvements, along the corridor, not just highway infrastructure, but local improvements, including complete streets projects, transit projects, that can help improve, mobility across the 101 corridor in San Mateo County. Next slide, please. The program was guided by 4 goals: connectivity, safety, sustainability, and inclusivity. These help guide not only the planning process, but also the selection of the top priority projects in each of our multimodal strategies. Next slide, please. All right, so the multimodal strategies, we created 3 of them, for each part of the county, the north, central, and south. Each of these, has a set of 20 priority projects that include, again, highway, active transportation, transit, and then other improvements that rose to the top. Next slide. Okay, community engagement was one of the central themes of the 101 Corridor Connect planning process. We did online surveys. We had recorded presentations online, interactive maps on our website. We also did pop-ups at community events, held meetings with our local community-based organizations, and again, came to groups like yours and well as the city councils. And not to forget, we put up temporary signs at bus stops, which was kind of a fun thing to do to, get more people to participate in the process. So as a result, we got quite a bit of feedback from the communities. A little over 1,200 survey responses, 114 people attending CBO meetings, 12 community pop-up events, and then a lot of comments received throughout those different venues. Next slide, please. So what did this result in? Here's a map of the three the North Central and South County priority projects. Each part of the county has a 20 project list of the top priority projects that were identified throughout the planning process, of course, going back to the goals that were the sort of the guiding principles for the plan. All right, next slide, please. Active 101. So as part of the 101 Corridor Connect program, we also received a grant from the California Department of Transportation to take a closer look at the crossings across US 101 for active transportation, with the goal of looking at within a quarter mile of US 101 to create a network of projects that would improve connectivity, both up and down US 101, but also across US 101. And again, focus purely on bike and ped improvements. Next slide, please. So we did a subset of engagement for Active 101. Again, did a number of pop-up events, stakeholder presentations, and then online surveys. A few nice photos of the different events there. Okay, and then of course it's we have the same goals for Active 101: safety, connectivity, sustainability, and inclusivity. Once this network's fully built out, which is admittedly a very large effort, one which we probably don't have enough money for in the county, but still we could, once fully built out, we'll have, better access to schools, better access to transit, and of course, access to services. Next slide, please. Okay. So what does this mean for Menlo Park? As part of the South County multimodal strategy, there were a couple of projects that were identified in those top 20, one being the improvements to the Marsh Road interchange, and also identifying the need for a separated bike and ped crossing at Marsh Road. Also improvements to Willow Road in conjunction with cities of Atherton and East Palo Alto. Active 101 identified 3 projects, again, Marsh Road, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Chilco Street, good, okay, and then Newbridge Street as well. So next there, okay, so why is this important is our board has made $4 million available for a set of mini grants where we're looking, because all these projects in Active 101 are in Corridor Connect and Active 101 are, really very basic planning level studies. Many cases are lines on a map, no preliminary planning or engineering has been done. So we wanted to encourage communities to apply to this mini grant program. We'll provide up to $750,000 per project and $1 million if it's a joint project with a local jurisdiction, with the idea of sort of jump-starting these projects so they can be better prepared to apply for either our bike and ped funding program, or as part of our highway program, the supplemental roadways, which funds Complete Streets. So we'll be having a very simple application coming out this summer. So we're encouraging all cities to apply. If we're oversubscribed, our board seemed very willing to up that amount from $4 million. I can't guarantee that, of course, but they did seem very interested in knowing if we were oversubscribed, if we could make more money available. And then the application is really going to focus on really a letter of interest, and then confirmation of, what kind of assistance the city is looking for in terms of technical assistance from the TA. And if you're awarded a grant, we're going to ask cities do a site walk with us and invite at least one of the city council members so that they're invested in the project and the process. And then, we'll help get the planning and preliminary engineering underway. All right, next slide, please. So again, we're talking with our partners right now, last month and this month. We'll be releasing the mini grant program in June. It's going to be a short turnaround, but it's going to be a very light application in July. And then in August, we'll make those funding decisions. And I should also mention, since I'm here this summer in August, we're going to be releasing our bike and ped call for projects. So we're encouraging cities to apply to those as well. So even if you don't get funding for the mini grant program, there's still an opportunity to be funded out of the bike and ped program. All right, next slide. And so sort of these are our key actions, which we're asking, commissioners, city councils to talk to their staff and us about applying for one of these grants, participating in the site walk if selected. And then we're also launching a CBO bench, which we're going to make available to jurisdictions to help with engagement in the community to help move these projects along. And I believe the last slide is questions would go to my staff, Sue Ellen Atkinson, the manager of planning and fund management. She's the project manager for 101 Corridor Connect, and I'll try to answer as questions I can, but Sue Ellen is really your main source of information for Corridor Connect. And with that, happy to take any questions you might have.
Quickly, what is CBO Bench?
The community-based, so we've partnered with a number of different community-based organizations in each part of the county, including the coast, to basically where the TA is going to pay those organizations to help with community outreach for cities that are looking to move transportation projects forward. And of course, transportation projects that fit within our sort of different program categories. So for example, if Menlo Park wanted to do engagement, and I can't remember the CBOs for South County off the top of my head, but we could partner you with one of those community-based organizations, and we have different levels of engagement from helping just get information out to the community, to staffing events, or to holding community meetings with that group. So it's just really another tool to help get outreach to the community, instead of your normal channels of, a website or email updates or newsletters.
So if I'm looking at the slide with the top 20 highest scoring projects, and I was a little surprised that Middlefield Road wasn't highlighted, given that there's 2 schools on that, and there's been accidents on that street. So if it's not listed as one of the top 20 highest scoring projects, there's still a process by which improvements could be made.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's, basically the priority project list doesn't guarantee funding. It's really like, here are the highest scoring projects through this planning process. Really the only, we have the mini grant program that's really designed just for those priority projects. But if the city wanted to pursue improvements, certainly the, number of our funding programs could support those, improvements on Middlefield Road. So that's not an issue at all.
Thanks.
I have a quick clarifying question. I'm impressed as always with the feedback outreach that you do to get feedback is really robust. And I think you use a lot of different channels, which is also really shows a lot of effort. So thank you. And I also appreciate that you're willing to lend some of those things to the cities, in the CBO bench. I just had I'm slightly curious if you said that you tried signs at bus stops. I'm wondering if those worked. Did you get a reaction?
Well, That's a good question. I would have to, I don't know if we tracked how,
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
it might have been, because it's directing people, it was a QR code and
Sure.
a web address to like direct people onto the online surveys and the, you know, I would have to ask
No problem.
if those QR codes could have, if there was any
Could be
tracking that
tracked.
would have been,
Yeah, yeah.
that, you know, that is beyond my,
Yeah, yeah. No
outside
problem.
of my wheelhouse, but you
I'm
know,
also
it's
just-
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. I'm also just curious, like what channels do you think provide your staff with the best quality feedback? You know, feedback that feels really useful to you.
Honestly, the community pop-up events, because you're talking to people where they are.
Sure.
I
Mhm.
think those are some of the most useful.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
Frankly, you know, the CBO meetings, again, it's like meeting people where, you know, where they are in the community rather, you know, than asking people to go to a meeting like this or just go to our website and take a survey.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, we
right.
really, at least for me, I found that you know, the in-person community events were probably the most helpful.
Okay, thank you. A last question is, you know, we've on this commission, we've talked a lot about Willow Road, and I
Mhm.
know we have a lot of consensus around supporting better crossings at the major, you know, Willow and Marsh, of course. So, what would you see as the steps or actions that the people on the commission could take to really help make that case for Menlo Park? Is it reaching out to the city council and staff? Is that what you? Yeah.
Yes, I would say reaching out to the city council and staff, and especially with Willow, since it's on the multimodal strategies list, is,
Yes.
you know, and same with Marsh Road, is encouraging, you know, encouraging staff to apply for the mini grant program. And of course, yeah, the bike ped program's coming up, but yeah, the mini grant program, it's going to be a very simple application. Yeah,
Mhm.
it really will help kickstart, you know, that early project planning. So, yeah, that is really the way to do it, is just encourage folks to apply. Yeah,
Okay.
because we have money that we want to give out to the community.
Could I ask one quick question? This might be for
course.
Katrine, but is there a multi-jurisdictional plan to go in? Because it looks like there's a bigger pot of money if we could go in with Palo Alto.
So seven. Well, you have to go with East Palo Alto. We won't fund a project in Santa Clara County.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry. So, okay, so East Palo Alto or
It
Redwood
was
City
Appleton,
yeah.
exactly. If it's a multi-jurisdictional project where the project is sort of, you're trying to do a contiguous project between, if they're two disparate projects, you know, they would have to apply on their own. But if you have
Okay.
a contiguous project,
And it has to be like a shovel-ready project, I
no.
presume, just given the
for the
deadline,
for the
right?
mini grants, it's really about getting the projects off the ground, and because really most of these projects, there hasn't been really anything done other than having them identified in a plan. Some have moved forward a little bit further, but many of them, you're really looking at like, let's just get that planning process started. And, you know, a $750,000 grant for a singular project, that's a good chunk of money to really do that initial planning. And then, yeah, $1 million if it's a multi-jurisdictional project.
So Katrine, do we have anything that could fit that category with East Palo Alto or Redwood City or Bellhaven?
Say if I look at,
Of the projects here on the list, so Willow Road already is funded by a grant for design. I think where we're still seeking grant funding is for the implementation. So I don't think that one would be a great fit. And this is
I'm
just
trying to,
off the cuff of what I know, just
so yeah, there's, let's see here. Okay, yeah, Willow Road plan specs estimate started, okay. I'm just trying to look through our project list where you have multi-jurisdictional projects. But yeah, let's see, where did it go? There's, I'm trying to look through the multimodal strategy document itself.
the project 6 and 16 would be probably something with Caltrain and then the Dunbarton Expressway. Those are
Yes,
those
I
are
was
multi,
just going to ask what
Yes.
16 was.
16, let's see.
just by the line. It must be Dunbarton.
It looks like
Give me
that.
give me a moment.
Well-
The Samtrans Reimagine Dumbarton project. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, we provide, I mean, that project's, we've provided, the TA's provided called Regional Transit Connections Program funds to Dumbarton to reimagine Dumbarton. We also have a separate Dumbarton funding category within Measure A, so that project is fairly well positioned to at least get through, planning and design.
Quick question on the map. Is it correct that the Willow Road 18 is bicycle only, not bike ped?
Let's see.
It's bicycle.
18 Willow Road bicycle improvements, Menlo Park and East Palo Alto. Yeah.
Okay, bicycle improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also like there's sidewalks that go over that overpass. So I guess what's the distinction between bicycle pedestrian and
This
like multimodal?
Well, it's not every project's going to be multimodal in every respect. I mean, this one is just class 4 separated bike lanes. So it's really, there's other projects which, for example, and I'm just going down the list, number 19, which is in Redwood City, is Whipple Avenue, is looking at bike and pedestrian improvements. They haven't even started the project yet, but that could be looking at, sidewalks, separated bike lanes.
So this would be these have been identified as projects which are specific for the bicycle improvements and not touching the pedestrian situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of the projects that are in this list or would have been ranked are most likely to be found in like a transportation master plan where it would have been really high level, just very conceptual. And so it doesn't necessarily mean there wouldn't be sidewalks included or something like that. It just doesn't make the 10-word project description.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I should say it's like none of the projects that are selected they're not the TA's projects. These are all projects that were identified in local plans and then, vetted with city staff. So it's, and certainly when projects haven't progressed to any level of planning or design, I mean, there's always opportunities, of course, if the cities wanted to incorporate other elements into those projects, just because it's listed here as, I'm just going to make something up, just says, oh, well, we're going to do is bike lanes. But, through that planning process, you say, what, this part of this roadway could really benefit from wider sidewalks or other like pedestrian scale amenities. There's nothing to say that can't also be incorporated into the project.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the support. I love the Dumbarton corridor, number 16 on the map there. Would love to see the connection with the Bay to Sea Trail, the open space preserve guys, if you could figure out that one and support that. I'm sure you've heard lots of things about that. And the one thing which I think is under this is, and the portions of it is in Menlo Park, is the Bay Trail going from Bedwell. There's a huge disconnect. So I ride my bike from Menlo Park all the way to Sunnyvale twice a week. And I've heard from a lot of friends that are in the biotech industry that ride their bike to South Bay and some of the scariest roads in the area. And if they keep asking, they're like, this makes no sense. Why is there not a Bay Trail? And the response I get is it's city-based, and Redwood City won't even do a study. So is there somebody we could talk to push for that?
In Redwood City?
Yep. I've emailed them for years. I've never got a response. You're the big honcho, so help me out. Yeah.
I would say their director of transportation and engineering is probably a good person to start with. They do have a transportation staff there. So, you're always welcome to copy the TA as well.
Okay.
Put us on the email.
That's
I
a
mean,
good idea.
for what it's worth.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, we just hold the power of the purse. We can't.
Okay. People love the money then.
Yes, we
Make them dance.
Exactly. But, we're always happy to encourage cities to, pursue projects that, they're going to benefit the community. Whether or not we can give them money or not is another story. But, certainly if it's eligible for one of our programs and the city submits an application, we'll score it and, hopefully it gets funded.
Great. And then for unincorporated San Mateo County, there's a couple sections in here on the map. What, if any, unincorporated projects are made the top 20?
Let's see. I'm looking, just trying to go through here. Looks like Project 20, Charter Street Bike Improvements. It's sponsored by Redwood City and the County of San Mateo. Let's go up here. I knew I saw one just a moment ago. Yeah, Marsh Road is with Marsh Road Bike and Ped Improvements Phase 1. That's project number 15. That's San Mateo County and Atherton. Let's see. Nope, my computer decided not to cooperate with me. Let me just go up. Redwood City. Yeah, those look like the two main ones I'm seeing right now.
I wanted to bring up another one. Ringwind Coleman Avenues, that started over 20 years ago. There's a recent study done. It's gone through the BPAC and studies, and the BPAC said move ahead with it. The supervisors haven't put it on their agenda to review it. It kind of got shut down. And I'm wondering, with so much resources and things that were put into it, why isn't it listed on this? There's 5 or 6 schools in the surrounding area. There's been injuries. We call the CHP, we call the sheriff almost on a daily basis, and it looks severely missed. And we've reached out to hundreds of people, even yourself, I believe, and just wanted more understanding.
You know, I am not familiar with that, but I can ask my staff to get back to you. Let me write down what project was that?
Ringwind Coleman Avenues project. Yep.
Okay.
There's a
Great.
portion that's county owned.
Yeah, there's a portion.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Much
we
appreciated.
can look at that. Yeah.
It's one of those complex projects where the city owns some, portion of the road and the county owns the other. And the city proceeded with a pilot and the county hasn't yet.
Okay.
And if I don't know how much it needs to be related to 101 crossings, but it is like the main pathway from there's a bike bridge which connects directly from like one part of Menlo Park to the other part of Menlo Park.
Okay.
That connects on that road. It's a good list.
Yeah, I'll ask my team to get back to staff and they can provide you with the info.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay.
I mean, I just wanted to add, anyone involved in transportation, safe streets, improving, multimodal transportation around here, we're kind of all in this together. So thank you so much for providing funding and for reaching out to the public and engaging them. And, we will do our part to advocate. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome. And yeah, thank you.
Are there any further clarifying questions before I call for public comment? Nope. Okay, Katrine, could you please call for public comment on this item?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press star 9 to raise your virtual hand. Pam, I have you in the queue and you can speak.
Good evening, Pam Jones. I'm a resident of the Bellhaven neighborhood, and we had a wonderful presentation from the Samtrans on the Reimagine Dumbarton, which was very exciting for us. But all of this is a reminder that we need to consider that we have a number of apartments, new coming on board over close to Marsh Road. And that Vasara, for example, the youngsters there would be attending school in Redwood City. And I think that really should be one of the areas where you engage the residents on Haven Avenue, as well as Vasara and Lumi, as to what would be the most appropriate work that can be done with the mini grant, what would work well for them since they're the one that would be using it. And then of course, with the District 2 as well as District 1 because Willow Road does affect both communities, as working with our communities because the overpass there is very challenging for bicyclists as well as pedestrians. So thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I look forward to some positive things happening for the pedestrians and the bicyclists.
Having no one further in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Okay. Since there's no motion or anything, I guess we will move on. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So the next item will be item E3, selection of chair and vice chair. Katrine Maki, Senior Transportation Planner, will introduce this item.
This is pretty straightforward, and this is the same one you saw last year. And I don't think there's a lot of shocking new information here. But to revisit the roles of the chair and the vice chair, the chair does meet with staff, the staff liaison, to set the agendas for the Complete Streets Commission meetings. That's once per month, and then presides over those meetings. You are given a script, so you don't have to know all of the correct wording and everything like that. The chair typically delivers the CSC's annual updates to City Council. So that's one presentation. And then the vice chair will serve as a chair in the chair's absence. The vice chair also attends the liaison or the agenda setting meetings as well. The chair and vice chair are sometimes called upon to represent the commission at ceremonial events, accepting proclamations, things like that. So the protocol will be to, I think last year you kind of self-nominated and then we had a vote, and I think that worked great. So we could do that again this year. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Are there any clarifying questions on these wonderful presentations? Okay, Katrine, could we go to public comment?
Yes. For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature. If you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. I have no one in queue for public comment. I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you. Is there any further commission discussion? Okay, would anyone like to nominate themselves or another member of the commission to be chair or vice chair?
Can I nominate Commissioner Bergen-Bailey to be chair?
Commissioner Bergen-Bailey is taking on a large role at her kids' school next year, a large volunteer role. And if nobody else wants it, would be willing to do vice chair. If nobody else, I would throw my hat in the ring for vice chair. I would actually nominate Sally for chair if she's up for doing it again and willing.
Sure. There are probably other nominations, but sure. And microphone. Right?
Sure, I'd be happy to step up. There obviously may be other nominations, but of course.
Well, this seems like it will be an easy process then. Okay, shall we vote on Commissioner Sally Cole as the chair? All those in favor, please raise your hand.
I have to raise my hand too.
It's unanimous. And for Commissioner Bergen-Bailey as vice chair, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Also unanimous. Would you like to take over the meeting?
I could, but what would you like to do? I'm happy.
I don't care.
You should continue.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should
Finish this.
Go ahead. Athena, we've loved you as chair. Hey, thank you, Athena, for your service.
Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, it's very
I know in
exciting.
the city council meetings, sometimes they're like, I'm not mayor anymore. Okay, great. You know, but- No, it's, you go.
This is very, yeah.
Oh, may I
Straightforward.
make mention of one thing, though? I apologize, but it has to do with what we just voted on. I would appreciate if anyone wants to reach out to me before the next meeting and provide me any feedback about, because I've been chair before, about what I was doing or how I was managing meetings or any aspect of it. I would absolutely welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's move on. The next item is item E4, provide feedback on the 2026-2027 work plan. Katrina Maki, Senior Transportation Planner, will introduce this item. Katrina.
Yes, I wanted to open the floor for discussion to hear. I've heard in the past, there's a couple things that I can just propose. There was a language on, I'm looking at it now. Oh, advice versus advise. I think, you know, that one. And cleaning up the bullets versus the letters and the subheadings, I think to make it easier to reference which one we're going to. So those changes could be made. There's a couple projects in here that are complete, like and so some of that cleanup can happen. But if there's additional feedback you want to provide me before I give you the first draft, I think that will help things be more productive in our discussion next month when we hope to adopt. So maybe this would be a good chance to practice the discussion and then the consensus.
Okay, do you have something to present for us that we can?
I can share the work plan up on the screen. It was in the agenda packet.
Sure. Right.
Okay.
It's just a bigger screen.
I'm sorry not to know, but do we take public comment on this before we?
As an agendized item,
clarifying
yes, we'll call for
questions
public
first.
comment.
Okay, so now we.
So you could do clarifying questions and then, yeah.
Are there clarifying questions from the commission on, I guess what I will split this up into is clarifying questions on our like exact word, like maybe we do clarifying questions on like the process.
Right.
And then we'll take our discussion, which may include questions that clarify certain words, to after public comment. Okay, so are there any clarifying questions on our plan for this discussion? Okay.
One. Well, I'm not sure if this is the right place for this, but in the roles and responsibilities, is that something we can talk about?
At the top?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what we mean in the first sentence, but it is not grammatically correct.
In this sentence here?
Yes, it's as they relate to transportation, and I know that's not what we mean because the "it" is supposed to refer to input, but that's not how it's not how it works. It's as they. So I think we might want to change the wording of this sentence.
Okay, so
The
Sorry.
Complete Streets Commission shall advise the city council on realizing the city's adopted goals for Complete Streets Vision Zero Climate Action Plan and provide input on major land use and development projects as it relates to transportation. Is that? I'm actually looking at the website, not at this. But.
The wording's a little bit different. That's
okay. Sorry, this is may fall under our discussion section.
Okay.
So perhaps we take public comment first and then we can come back to this.
Sounds good.
Sorry. I just want to keep this fully because we're going to be discussing as we ask each other clarifying questions, and I feel like it's going to we should just do public comment first.
okay. For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature. If you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. We have no one in queue for comment, so I return the meeting to the chair.
Okay, now we can revisit this question. Um,
I'm looking at the website, but this has already been fixed in this because there's it's 2 sentences instead of 1, which is great.
Well, just following up. So when you read the language on the website,
Yeah.
you'll note that it said it included that language that we had last year around that part of our responsibilities, the police chief's responsibilities was to review the transportation aspects of development projects. And now that language has been dropped. And I want to call that out because that language was approved by the city council in that February, 2023, really long document where they approved the remit of all the commissions. So I don't think we should drop it. The other thing is that when Athena and I attended the city council meeting where the city council considered our proposal to have the Complete Streets Commission weigh in on development projects, the city council did not approve that, but they did approve that if there were projects that had 2 elements present, you can probably articulate this, Katrine, like they didn't have an EIP or, whatever those 2 elements were present, that we as the
That's
commission
here under item 3.
could review them. Provide input as well as changes as using. But there we go. So I don't think the top should remove that element. I think we should keep that language up there because we are, in effect, if you go down to number 3, reviewing some types of development projects. So I wouldn't drop it from the top is what I'm saying. But anyway, can you read that again, Scott? I'm not opening the website, but what did it used to say?
It used to read, or it does read right now, the Complete Streets Commission shall advise the City Council on realizing the city's adopted goals for complete streets, Vision Zero, climate action plan, and provide input on major land use and development projects as it relates to transportation.
So first of all, something's been dropped. Transportation master plan was.
So which is this is the most updated one, right? On our screens right now? Or is the one on the
Yeah, and that's
website?
the official adopted work plan. I don't know when the last time the roles and responsibilities on the commission website has been updated, but I wouldn't look at that as any official. That's paraphrasing, the official document is the one on your screen with the work plan. And
Okay.
I have a feeling this is older. It probably wasn't updated for a while.
The work plan goals are older?
No, the roles and responsibilities on the website.
Okay, but the work plan goals.
This is the official one that was adopted.
So it's been updated and refreshed. If you look at item 3, as you called out, right? If you want to scroll down there for a second, obviously it's been updated post the city council meeting that we just had a few months ago to say that we are going to provide input and recommendations.
This is what came out of that city council
That's
meeting
right.
was the direction
That's
for
right.
the pilot.
Yes, so
Yeah.
that's been updated.
Right.
So I don't think the language above that was in last year's work plan where it said that we advise on development projects should be dropped. I think you could say something like, in addition, commission advises on development projects as specified in item 3 or something, but I just don't think it should be dropped. That's my opinion. I think that, and the reason being is, sorry to go be like technical, but way back when the city council, and I think it was February of 23, approved that sort of 8-page document saying what each commission's remit is, that language was in it. So unless the council says, let's pull.
I remember them matching, right? Like I thought this first sentence or 2 sentences at the top was a direct copy from what was in the directive from the council on what the Complete Streets Commission was supposed to do.
It was initially, I think
and then it
and then
edited.
it changed because of the discussions that we were having about
Okay.
the development.
Okay.
I think. Is that
Yeah.
true? Because I remember when we went to city council, that was a point that we had brought up, that it was directly
That it was
copied from the roles and
Yeah.
responsibilities, but then I don't know, this might have gotten changed.
So Scott, to address your concerns, are you happy with the phrasing of the work plan goals that we're looking on the screen? Not on the website, but on the screen for the she said it was grammatically correct or?
It reads much better.
Okay, so this is good. So maybe what we do, just to keep going, is that, Katrina, if you want to pull up that other language, or I can, it was in the council, I can pull it up from the packet to the council, but either way, we can just add it up here for review next time. The language that says that we reviewed transportation related aspects of development projects, I would add it back in, and maybe next time we can go back to it and agree, or I can propose, we can all decide whether it says something like as specified in number 3. I just don't want to lose.
And we have 3, which will go back to council for their direction on what they want to do with the pilot. So that wording will be.
Question, we've only reviewed one development project because only one met this criteria. Is the pilot for 1 year or is it for 2 projects?
Joanna raised her hand. Joanna, you wanna?
Hi, good evening, commissioners. So just to clarify, yes, so when the council approved the edited work plan, it did call out 1 year. So 1 year from when that happened was September. So we are planning to provide council an informational item in September and report back on the pilot project or projects.
Well, that's why I think it's important to include at the top, because if the city council approved document a couple of years ago with regard to all the commissions, it stated their remit. And it said that this commission reviews the transportation aspect of development projects. And the city council this year, for a 1 year period, defined that as 3. I think it should still be stated above. We could have next city council saying they shouldn't do it at all. Or the next city council should say, oh, maybe they should do that more often. But either way, the general principle that was agreed upon by the current city council, that should be part of our remit, I think should stay at the top. And then whatever direction we get from the city council after a year, it can either be removed entirely if they think that should be gone from our remit, or it could be, they could just say, okay, we'll extend this for another year and try to find.
So the work plan will go into effect once it's approved by city council in August, and that 1 year term is up in September. Is that right?
What Joanna was saying is that the 1 year, like we would like in the next year for, this is what the city council approved, right? Like a couple months ago we were there, right? Like
but it was in September. It started like this. Yeah.
The clock started in September?
I think that's what Joanna said, that the clock started in September.
So then it ends in September, yeah.
Which.
That is correct. So I believe, and Katrine, please correct me. I'm sorry for interrupting. To clarify, is all the work plans are planned to be in front of council in August. And so the language will stay as is, and the informational items specifically for the pilot projects will be going to council in September. So if council decides to have a different direction, it will happen after September.
Okay, and then would we have the opportunity or be required to revise if we left this item 3 as is in the existing work plan, and then
because the commission
September
takes
will-
directive from council, you wouldn't have a chance to revise it again, but you
it would just be removed automatically?
or left in, or it probably not left in because it wouldn't be a pilot. They would then remove the pilot language and then either
Mhm.
keep it or remove it.
But it would be revised at that point.
Right, they would revise it.
Well, I mean, commissioners could go in front of the council in public comment and say, we would like you to continue this, or something like that. But I think, Joanne, I'm not sure if you and I are in agreement or if you've responded to my proposal to leave the language in the intro that says that we have that as one of our responsibilities. I think the best thing to do right now in order to move on this discussion is that I will bring that language to the next meeting.
And I can provide it, that I can, either way.
Sure,
Yeah.
right. And say, I think we should include it. We can all vote. So it's a small thing, but it might be a small thing to others. For me, it's not, because I think if we take it out, then I don't think the city council has any reason to consider future transportation related projects for us to review. That's it. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Can I play grammar checker one more time? I know I'm super annoying. I apologize.
Oh, it's fine.
This is what it's like inside my head. Number 3, provide input or recommendations as they relate. It's relating to input and recommendations is plural. Thank you. Sorry. I won't do it again.
No, keep doing it. That's great. And then this one, there was the other, here, advice. So I remember the discussion on this one, and I think we want to say provide advice, or I think it was meant to actually be advice and not advise. It just got mangled in the starting with the words that are the action. So do I capture that correctly? If this edit would be provide advice on Vision Zero strategies?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think it wasn't just a spell check issue. Like we did mean to say advice. Because it says advise and provide input. And I think some of the input would be advice on Vision Zero strategies.
I'd just like to this is an okay time to just give folks a perspective on a little project I did today, which is I thought it might be helpful because we always spend a lot of time on this, and I wanted to kind of review best practices or see what other kinds of commissions do. So I actually did look at the work plans that were discussed in the April meetings of this year with EQC, Parks and Rec, and the Library Commission. And what I found is that there are certain ways that they approach these work plans that they're in sort of in sync. There's some commonalities, but our work plan is not employing some of their approaches. So I just wanted to summarize them quickly. We can see if we think they make any sense for us, but here we go. So the things that these work plans seem to do, either that we're not doing or doing differently, is they all have a statement about encouraging, that they want to encourage public involvement and create atmosphere at meetings that, seek diverse viewpoints and, reach out to the public. So I can read the language they use, but that's an element. The second element is that there's a point where they briefly touch on the operation of the commission. Like they'll say, we are committed to a 12-month schedule of planned commission meetings. They'll say, we are committed to the successful recruitment and onboarding of new members, things like that. And the third thing, which I think is critical to the way we approach our work plan and for this year and potentially revising it, is that they make a general statement about what the core work is of their commission. Like we review and make recommendations on projects to the commission about things like the Vision Zero, blah, blah, blah. But then they don't include as much a detail around the specific projects as we do, or just as much language. So if we wanted to make this shorter or adopt an approach that's a bit more the way these folks are, I just want to point out really quickly that this is like the length of their ones. You can see that they're like half the size of ours. Not that they're doing it better, it's just different. And so I want us to just have a moment to think about it. So they're kind of like listing out the upcoming projects rather than talking about them in the granularity that we do. So that might be one way to shorten it up or make it more readable if we want to do that. And that's all. And I can read out language about some of these things if you think it might be interesting for us to adopt. I will say I found it interesting about the Environmental Quality Commission, because we know that they have a lot on their plate, probably similar to us. While they kept their work plan short, and as I said, talked about the core work, but didn't list out all the projects, they did have kind of a addendum after that says regular items. And it's just a bullet point list of things they think we're planning on talking about this year. Like that might be, Willow Road or, whatever. And then they have potential topics to add to the calendar. So that's their way of listing out the projects that we're responsible for, is just to keep this more concise. And then below it, just say, okay, regular items we anticipate addressing this year, XYZ, potential things to add, XYZ. I think,
If I may, because
of course.
yeah, the one thing that's a little bit different about the EQC than CSC is that they revisit topics annually as kind of a regular agenda item, as they're calling
Yeah.
it regular. And ours are a lot more project related,
Yeah.
which are harder to predict. So we can have, like we wouldn't know, for example, when a parking removal request comes in. So you would just say at a high level, it'd be parking removal and nothing specific. And we know from the 5-year CIP broadly which projects we would be talking about in the next year. But there is a 30% we kind of take as it comes depending on grants that come in or other projects that begin. But slow streets, kind of at that really high level, we know we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same as EQC, where they don't have that project-based work.
That's correct. I mean, we could also, if people agree it's useful to maybe remove some of or it might just be more readable to remove some of the, all the language we include about each project here and maybe separate into a list. I think we could qualify that by saying, projects we anticipate being on the agenda this year, rather than, these are this year's projects, right? Like just say that we anticipate it, something like that, but just some thoughts.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. No, I'm looking at this list. I mean, I see there's only like a couple of very concrete plans, right? And like in the sense, a lot of these are kind of recurring things, like the safe routes to school sort of is a recurring thing that we as a commission prioritize being up to date on and participating in where we can. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm wrong. I'm just looking at this number 2, which is the biggest block, but I guess number 1 has the more specific things that could be moved.
And clarifying, are we going to go through this process again in August, correct? In order to
Next month in June,
excellent.
because it needs to be adopted by you to go to an August 12th agenda for council. And I think you guys meet August 13th is.
And we don't
Actually,
need.
We're not meeting in August.
Can you scroll down just so we can see the item 1 incomplete? Am I the only one not seeing them on my screen here?
Seeing what?
I'm not seeing 1 or 2.
Yeah, you can't see.
Oh, yeah.
Make it so we can see 1 or 2.
Oh, sorry, up.
Okay.
There we go.
So we'll kick this down the road.
Okay, perhaps one thing we could do is not make this decision now because we are going to discuss this next month, but I will emphasize to people that over the course of the next month, please think about how the structure of what we would like this to look like, whether that's in line with other commissions which have these sort of shorter, more surface level things, or do we like our existing plan, which has the detail that guides us over the course of the year?
I will be preparing a staff report with red lines as I've done in the past. So if you get those ideas to me sooner than later, that will.
So is that the action item that we each send you? That seems, I don't know.
Yeah, it needs to be.
Can I just ask a question? Let me see if I can focus this. I just, if I can I just read the language about encouraging public involvement and stuff like that from the other commissions and just have a general agreement about whether we want to include some of that? Because I think to me, when I read it, it felt like it was representing values of Menlo Park that might be good to emphasize that we're also committed to. So I'll just read you what they say. So, because I think we can make very quick decisions. So Parks and Rec starts out by saying, as an advisory body to the City Council and a forum for public information about park and recreation issues, encourage and facilitate robust public comment and participation at commission meetings. Bullet point 1, foster a public meeting environment that is inclusive of all members of the diverse Menlo Park community. Bullet point 2, focus on resident input and grow relationships with the residents throughout the city of Menlo Park. Parks and Rec. And libraries is very similar. And I like that.
I feel like that should be across the board for just like, I mean, without even having to put it in everybody's plan. That feels like something that should just be, clearly should be a given, but it's excellent that it's also written out. And maybe would it be an option to have something, boilerplate is not quite the word I'm looking for, but the same thing for every
template.
Yeah, oh, thank you, template.
I don't think we can write other commission's work plans, but I can definitely copy theirs. And so we can start the.
Maybe that's part of the question. Does it have to be part of the work plan, or can it just kind of be like part of a statement of who we are or a statement of intent?
Well, I
Does
think
it
that would be
cover
something to voice to
things?
council, because that's more appropriate for them to set, but yeah.
I mean, just from having been at the recent like appointment when people were applying to be on the commissions, and I was sitting with some people who had applied to Complete Streets, I actually like having it in each one's work plan, because some people go online and they just look at one commission's work plan if they're thinking of applying to it. And then they're hearing, oh, they're committed to that. Yeah. Some people didn't have that, but I thought that was kind of a good add.
And I would add that it's true that onboarding, like thinking about how you onboard new people to your commission, like it is actually part of the work. We did, that was some of it. So I would say like it isn't the most obvious top work, but it's also the work that keeps people coming to the commission, which like is a good problem to have. So I totally support having something in there that just, even if it's just part of that overall thing at the beginning that we provide advice and we do these things, like, I don't know if it needs to be like a bullet pointed thing in the work plan, or if it's just a description of who we are as a commission.
Well, in the way it's done in the other commissions, it's the first thing on the work plan goals. I like that. I mean, I like that because I think it is part of what we do, but we do focus so much on the projects and dive into all the details. And, do I like reading that sentence right? Sorry, that bullet point, grow relationships with residents. I don't think that's been one of my goals. I think it's nice to say that's something we should have in our goals. So my recommendation on that particular thing would be, we can all vote on this later, but to include that up top like the other folks do. The other thing, by the way, I should want to be fair that there's some amplification of this in environmental quality says, ensure, their second goal is ensure that our most vulnerable communities have a voice in policies and programs to protect their communities from environmental impacts. Obviously, we're not environmental impacts, but that's like an extra perspective that they're adding in the public outreach piece. So that's one thing. The second thing, as I mentioned, and as Commissioner Seabrian just referenced, is this idea of, quickly saying something about how we commit to operate. This particular language is the last thing in the commission work plans I reviewed, which is things like maintain a 12-month schedule, plan commission agenda items, annually host city council liaison at a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Obviously, they're committing to like reach out to the city council liaison and have them attend one meeting. It's kind of interesting. And the other thing here was this one about support the filling of openings on the commission and effective onboarding of new commissioners. So that's kind of in the category of how we operate. People were including that as the last thing in the work plan. But if we want to include language like that, we could.
Which work plan was that from?
That support the filling of openings is from EQC. Okay. I'm sorry, to be fair, just noticing that EQC, the thing about encouraging public comment and fostering it, but that was all at the end as well. So we can put it at the end, that's fine. But in the other ones, it was the front.
So theirs are shorter than ours?
Yes.
But they include like
Yes.
3 staple non-work items
Yeah.
in addition to having less than us?
Yes, so I think that they are considering, when you say non-work, it's like non-project work, but it's still the work of the commission.
This is the
But
first
so-
items of their
So let me jump to why I think theirs is shorter. I'll just give you an example. I'm not saying we should do this. I just want everyone to think about how we want this to look. So for example, after reading these, when I look at that B, advise and make recommendations for new ongoing projects, none of that would be included, right, in the work plan. It would just say something like, maybe one would be, advise and provide input, grabbing the 2-sentence, right? Advise and provide input to the city council on transportation policies, programs, maybe including the implementation of the transportation master plan. Like just say very generally, what is the core work that we do? And then, either like bullet point below, like new and ongoing projects and pilots without listing them, right? Maybe it says advice on Vision Zero strategies. Like it's just punchier and less naming all the specifics. That's what these folks have done a bit more of. So that might not appeal to us. Maybe the commission here wants to make sure that we've really put it all down. But it's just a bit more
Can I ask,
general.
And Katrina, this might be a question for you, and I don't know if you can answer it or not. We spent a long time
Yes.
on this and doing the nitty gritty. I'm wondering if other commissions spend as much time annually on their work plan. Do you not know, or no, they sure don't?
They don't.
Okay.
A lot of them, I don't think I don't know comprehensively, but what I've heard at a liaison meeting was that some of them don't change. Like I think it was EQC, just kind of they're happy with the way it is, and they update the here and there, but the bones stay the same.
I think what I'm hearing Sally say is maybe we might want to go shorter, and I wonder if that would also help with longevity, in that if we don't have specific items, then we spend less time year over year massaging the work plan. I'm seeing a lot of nodding. Okay. Yeah, I would be interested.
I look at this list of projects, like many of these are done. So they're just going to, in 1B2, all those projects are done and they can be deleted. And if the projects kind of are stale, from year to year, then unless Katrina helps you in some way to strengthen you and your work with your staff,
we could
to have the accountability of having a listed project here. But if it doesn't help you, I don't see the value of, putting them on this list.
I think it's valuable. I'm not saying that we need to write it in a work plan, because I think we spend a lot of time on the work plan. I agree with that. But I think making this list for ourselves, perhaps at the same time as the work plan in a separate document, is valuable for the commission.
I would agree to that.
And the new and ongoing projects will always also be listed in the 5-year capital improvement plan or the TMP. So that this wouldn't be the only place it might not be listed the same way, but this information is provided in the annual budget in the capital improvement plan program.
Add something, please.
I love what you said, Commissioner Irikomos. Part of what I was pondering is that difference between the sort of action minutes and the what did we really do and talk about, that I need to remember, because the action minutes aren't always doing it for me. But also, I do think it's silly to say this, but it's quite helpful at the end of the year when you have to report out with council and you get to look right down your work plan and say, we did this and this and this and this and this and this and this. So as a summation activity, this work plan is lovely because everything you want, and then you just get rid of it. But also it means that between now and the next month, we'd have to figure out how to repopulate it. And so maybe it's a great opportunity to not do it that way anymore, but recognize that we're giving up that checklist and figure out how else to capture it.
But potentially, to Athena's point, keeping a side checklist would make that end of year reporting really easy. I like the granularity of this, in that it helps keep it kind of front of mind for me. But as far as longevity and just not having to spend, meeting after meeting, massaging it and making it, individual year over year, I think having something more of an overview, more broad, that just kind of lives on year over year, but then maybe we have a side document that's like our goals or projects for 26, 27.
And
So
I think,
something like that.
and I think that would take less time to create because we would not be so focused on the outward aspect of it. And as instead, it would just be a reference list for us that would help us make subcommittees and things like that.
I know.
And would we manage that, that attachment list as an attachment to the work plan, similar to what EQC did?
EQC does,
Okay.
yeah. By the way, I did make copies because I wasn't sure if that was helpful, but let me just pass out my copies of the environmental, because so I'm not just, it's hard to visualize. So the Environmental Commission, Quality Commission, in addition to saying like, here's the items we think we're going to be covering this year, they then include a list of the subcommittees with like what the subcommittee is going to do. So that could be one, that could be one, Chair, way we could possibly do it, just to really tie it. But I do include it on the work plan that's published to the site.
I do worry about, then we would need to make the subcommittees at the time. Right?
Here, wait, there's
Which
more of
we
a-
did this year, but we don't have to do.
Oh, people look so fast. There's a lot of. Yeah, they get really, really detailed. And I don't think we don't need to do that, but it's just, oh wait, I'm sorry.
And yeah, so they have a list of their subcommittees as well that are,
Doing stuff.
doing stuff.
And this is not best practices as much as, one way that's done, and then we can define our own way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, we're not voting today, but I would like to get some consensus. It seems like our general consensus at this point is to streamline a bit. I think we have the majority opinion for that. And to append a list of specific goals and what form those goals take. Maybe let's focus on that right now. Do we want to include, because this first page here, which is like the month by month, I think we cannot predict as that doesn't apply for our commission. But we could just list out the things on the CIP and TMP, which would be relevant for the upcoming year, leaving some flexibility. That's one option. And then the question of the formation of the subcommittees, which we do this, but we don't append it to our work plan currently. But we do basically the same thing.
We can separately agendize ad hoc subcommittees and it doesn't need to be part of the work plan.
Can I this form, the ad hoc subcommittees, I would envision is it what you're saying, that something like this, but for these individual little work items, like for advise on, whatever the things it says, like each year we're going to elevate something or however we said it.
So for example, this year we might have put like the Nealon Park back in parking. I don't know where that is.
Oh, yep. The Middle Ave,
Oh yeah.
El Camino.
1B2.
Yep.
That one
Could move.
we could remove and instead have some list elsewhere that lists pilot projects.
Right.
Review pilot projects.
Right. With
And, yeah, I'm just trying to say it out loud for the video, but that we would list out pilot projects that say Nealon Park, Blake Street temporary closure, Holman Avenue, and include that.
And then so they decide at the beginning of the year to have ad hoc subcommittees, like they only meet for 3 months, but tentative report out in May. So you would like form your subcommittee, but then you wouldn't meet for like 9 months. It's interesting. It's very organized. I'll grant them that, like. But sometimes I guess, not that they don't, I don't know, it's that we do have these unexpected things that pop into our laps and, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to, at request, repeat the consensus that we shorten this into something which is more stable and requires less of our time nitpicking grammar and such every year. And
Although it's appreciated. Yeah.
and instead, so we would have a shortened one, which I think I heard consensus for including an encouragement of public engagement and onboarding of new members, that statements. People can disagree.
People agree with that? Okay.
And so that was, and including that statement, streamlining the rest of this and moving a section that would list all of the projects that we have planned to cover in the year, with the understanding that those are subject to change.
Okay.
I like that a lot. I like notes pages on this every year.
Yeah. The other thing I'm just, it's interesting. First of all, that was a very good summary. Thank you, Chair Iracomos. Yay. I'm just staring at this long thing about safe routes to school and I'm thinking, when it comes, we don't have to attach our subcommittees to the work plan or whatever, but when it comes time to talk about the subcommittees, some of this language could just move over into the remit for the safe routes to school subcommittee. So those people are realistically more apt to focus on it, Because I look at this, it's interesting. I look at this and I think to myself, oh shoot, like there were things we talked about and did we really do them? And I think in part because there was so much on here and, it makes working on a subcommittee just sound so much work and it makes it, I think it's too heavy.
Can I make a request of Katrine? And we should discuss if other people want this. But we could, with our list of projects that are on our plate for the year, we could revisit that at every meeting, perhaps, just like have it, because for a while you were doing that, right? You had the like upcoming projects and planned meetings. But then we could have the opportunity to like remind people, like there were things down here, that I kind of forgot we were doing, but then we would remind people, oh, if we intend to do this, we should probably get started on it now, sort of thing.
Yeah, I can think about how to incorporate it. It could even maybe be during informational items or updates or something like that.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be any work on your part. I think it would just be showing the same slide over and over again.
It had been an attempt to talk about future agendas, but that became such a fluid thing that we removed it.
Yeah.
But if I take away the kind of commitment that this is what's coming up and just a reminder of topics, and if I know, I'll tell you, but yeah, so I think we could add it back in without referencing it as a future agenda item, basically.
Yeah, just like just reminding of us of the list that we made.
I like that.
Okay. Okay. In that case, since this document is going to change structurally, is there a point in continuing our work on this at this meeting?
I think I have the feedback that I need to bring you a draft and a light staff report, but explaining some of those nuances. Like we'll recap the plan for the language for the pilot, for example, summarize that in the staff report so that you guys have it in front of you as a reminder of why that language won't change now, but will change in the future. And And then, yeah, I'll redline it basically. We'll take out more than we put in.
I think that's great because I know this has been a long process in the past and you like kind of like want to get to work and you're still working on the process. So I think it's good that we can move through it faster.
It shouldn't take 3 meetings.
No. No.
Does anybody else have any further comments on this?
I would just say, like, in the process of removing the projects, and if we move up a level of abstraction, I think we should try to tie the success metrics to that higher level of abstraction. Like, and maybe that's the level of discussion that we could have at the next meeting. Like, you know, is it VMT? Is it, you know, projects completed on time? You know, or, you know, I don't know what the milestones are that we want to talk about, but like that to me feels like the more important discussion that we should be having. And I think the debate that we had about the neighborhood safety improvements, I don't remember the name of the slow streets, like, and we talked about the formula that we were going to use, like that felt like a productive discussion. And how we should calculate, you know, how we're going to evaluate projects. We weren't talking project by project. We're talking about the algorithm that we're going to use to determine which project. The methodology. And maybe there's something similar we could do at the higher level, you know, for the work plan that would help set the strategy for, you know, project determination and evaluation. And so when the, you know, 101 team comes to us, it's obvious which ones, you know, we should be prioritizing because we have an agreed upon system, something like that. And when the progress that we're looking for is clear to everybody and is explainable and transparent.
I love that. I would encourage everyone to really think about that for the next meeting, just like really start brainstorming if we were talking more about, you know, the bigger goals and the methodology we use to get there more consistently.
That could inform, Sally, you mentioned the general statement on the core work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, very good point.
One item to mention is we have this project list and potential items to add to the calendar. If it was in the format that we had it before, it changed. As staff knew of things, we added to the list. But if it becomes adopted as an addendum or an attachment to the work plan, it would be more static.
You're saying.
So we could just bring that practice back without putting it as an addendum to the work plan.
Yeah, so you're suggesting keeping the project list off of the work plan in a separate document that just never goes to council.
A list that goes to council will become officially adopted in the work plan and it won't be fluid.
I see. Okay.
So I'm just distinguishing a difference between before where it was kind of a list that would change and adapt. If this one becomes part of the work plan, we wouldn't be adding to it when we're revisiting it regularly. So they're kind of different lists, I think.
I feel like to me, the point of the list is for us, like not so much for council, but it is for us.
That's a very good
so
point.
I would like something that has some liquidity to it.
That's good.
Personally.
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
I will capture that in the staff report as well, so we all remember next month.
Okay. Any further comments, questions, ideas about how we can streamline this process? No? Okay. Do we need to go to public comment? Did we do?
We did it already.
I did not cross it off. Okay. Okay.
For these, Sally.
You're welcome.
I think.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
They're very different than ours.
Okay, we've moved on from item E to item F. Informational items. Under informational items, city staff provides an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. The first informational item tonight is F1, update on major project status. Katrine.
My update is that the 2026 resurfacing projects are beginning soon. So the slurry is scheduled to begin next week. I I do also know that the projects that are near schools will begin after school is out and be done before it resumes. And so it would be all the roadways that are not within a quarter mile of schools that will be slurried beginning next week. That concludes my update on major projects.
May I ask a clarifying question? Does that include Pierce?
Yes.
Yep.
That's not the slurry. That's a separate CIP project, but I do believe that work is beginning, if not has already begun.
I think
Oh,
so.
I
too,
think
but
I think
just wanna check.
Joanna can update us.
Yes, sorry to clarify. So the Pierce Road project will be following the slurry. So the slurry project will come again, like Katrine said, next week. Pierce Bay, as well as a few of these Safe Routes to School project will come when school's out.
Okay.
So Pierce will not start yet. I think that's going to happen in that second step after the slurry, after school's out.
May I ask a question about an update on a project we've discussed in a previous meeting? Just
like to do that.
about the Coleman survey? Can I ask-
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, do you want to ask about it?
I can make an
Oh.
announcement too that the survey is out
Yes.
for the pilot and everyone should take that survey.
Right, and it's all wrapping up May 31st, right?
The pilot, the survey,
No, the survey.
the survey. Yeah. So
I think
get
I
your
read that.
answers in by May 31st.
When you say it's out, I don't think I've seen it. And we could get it in the school newsletter and have you seen it?
I just got it today.
I think of
It was included in the Menlo Park Update weekly email that you can sign up for.
Can we put some more
I think.
Oh, community.
outreach?
Let me look.
No, not that.
but we can't have a discussion, but I made my announcement
Sorry.
and then you can follow up outside of the meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on slurry resurfacing? So with those, is there improvements to the facilities for bike and pedestrian safety on those roads when they're getting slurried or resurfaced? I remember I read it somewhere, at least for the resurfacing, it was supposed to be taken into account.
Joanna, do you want to help me? So the question is, what improvements have been included in the resurfacing?
Yes, so we do not, so there's about, I believe, 15 streets that's being slurried. And of those, some improvements that will be included for example, refreshing the crosswalks, bike lanes. So those are the improvements that will be, but not every single street not every single of the 15 streets, but I cannot right now pull up what specifics are to be done.
Each street is a little
at
bit
each
different.
street.
Yeah, and the improvements are largely within the realm of striping.
Okay.
It was with the resurfacing, they don't move curbs, and so it's what can be done within the parameter of putting the paint back down.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Katrine, you can call for public comment on this item.
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Having no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Okay, this leads us to item G, committee and subcommittee reports. The ECR subcommittee would like to present this evening. Are there other subcommittees which would like to report out tonight? Okay, so we're going to put up some slides which summarize our work. This is not agendized, so we can't have discussion. But we will be agendized next month and can discuss it further at that point in time. So this is just a first draft look at our work, and even those can individual subcommittee members and individual commissioners. No, because that would break quorum if they reached out to us and had feedback. They would need to give us feedback.
We'll agendize it in the next meeting, and then that can happen.
Yes.
So who was on this committee?
Is me.
Scott? Great.
Yes. So you can go to the next slide. So this is our outline, the basic motivation. We can, yeah, this is not going to be a long presentation. Basically, the El Camino bike lanes have been really strongly motivated by some work that's been presented here at our commission, which is the Grand Boulevard Initiative, which is, this is a quote from their website, and they are looking to transform El Camino into a sort of multimodal street where anyone of any age and ability can use it in different ways. And this is something which spans both San Mateo and Santa Clara County, where they've already done a lot of work, including the Palo Alto separated bike lanes, which are very clearly new, and a lot of us have experienced, are, you know, comfortable and make riding our bikes on El Camino Real positive experience. Redwood City has also started construction on separated bike lanes, I believe, and Atherton is in their planning stages. They came to our commission and spoke about, the various pedestrian and bike improvements that they were interested in making on their street, on their section of ECR. So that's the motivation. But part of the motivation is also that people are already biking on El Camino, and they're just biking mostly on the sidewalks, which is unsafe for pedestrians, uncomfortable for the bicyclists, and yeah, well, depends on the situation. But basically, the motivation is to make it so that people, like, there's clearly demand for these cyclists to have this corridor available to them in a protected way. So we did a survey of the El Camino as it stands, and basically the northbound bike lanes, that is the side that's across from Santa Cruz, basically, from the intersection with Alma all the way to Middle Avenue. Parking has been completely removed on this section, and lane widths seem to be, at least by our calculations, and maybe staff has corrections to that based on their own previous work on this, but by our calculations, lane widths were sufficient for Class 4 bike lanes throughout the entirety of this segment, which would really ease continuity with the Palo Alto section as well. So this whole section is green because we can put Class 4 bike lanes there. Okay, next slide. Unfortunately, on the southbound side, there are a few more considerations. So there's a few sections marked here in red, which are quite narrow. These are 11-foot bike lanes, 11-foot car lanes. And there's no parking there which would, buffer that extra space. So these would only be wide enough for a shared Class 3 bike lane at this position. But it's only for about 2 blocks of this stretch, and the remaining sections have width of greater than 13 feet, which is enough for either a Class 2, at least a Class 2, which is paint on the road, or a Class 4 fully protected bike lane. Okay, so next slide. And there is parking on the southbound side. This is, measurements that we made, that the stretch from College to Partridge is 360 feet, which is like a maximum of 6 parking spaces when you include curb cuts and things like that. And then there were a couple of other spots which had several parking spaces, including 1 hour loading zone, yellow curb, 1 hour parking and yellow curb, which I think is loading zone, which is not necessarily, which could be replaced in other ways. So I think that one's a little bit more tricky. But it does seem like there's not so much parking to be removed as compared to the whole stretch. It's only on a couple of blocks to get that space cleared for the fully full bike lane with the exception of the narrow lanes. And this would be a sort of quick build project, which would be easy to set down. Paint mostly, and the materials for having the protection, I think it's also possible to include those as part of quick build. Okay, next slide. So in summary, the northbound section of ECR up to Middle Avenue can accommodate class 4 bike lanes for nearly the entire segment, except for like the very end near the intersection with Middle. And in the southbound direction, the lane width varies significantly, which provides its own challenges, but with removal of at most 15 parking spaces, we could have class 2 or class 4 bike lanes possible for the majority of the stretch, and the remaining 2 blocks would need to be shared, but that would already be providing significant safety improvements for residents who are already using this space, and also show that the city is interested in, revisiting this project, which I think has been brought up many, many times at our commission meetings, at city council meetings. There's clearly the public is interested in this project. So that's all I've got. Can I take clarifying questions that are not discussion? I don't know. No.
I think the rules allowed. Yeah. Oh, it says no discussion or questions.
Okay. Well, that's the presentation.
Just an appetizer for next month.
Please think about it over the next month. If you guys have comments or things that we should add to it, before we, close our subcommittee, that'd be great.
At the next meeting. We would be doing that. Okay. Yeah. Can we, before we adjourn, can we have a really robust round of applause for our chair?
Oh.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. This has been a fun year as chair, but happy to step down. And I will adjourn the meeting at 8:18.